Well, welcome in once again, everybody, to another, what I think is going to be another spectacular edition of Pick Your Politics. I'm your co-host, Dennis Silvers, along with my great co-host, Stephanie Phillips. We've got an absolutely awesome show for you today. And as we have talked about, Stephanie, on other shows, not only is Nevada happening with, local and regional and state elections, and we've had a lot of the candidates on, but it's going on all over the country. And yesterday was a vote in the state of Arizona. And because of that, we've got somebody special on, don't we?
We do. I can't wait to hear from him. And he won his election. The numbers look like, it's going to hold tight. So, yeah, we'll bring him on here in just a second.
Yeah, let me tell you a little bit about our special guest before we bring him up on camera. I want to get right to it. Mark Finchem is listed as a far-right politician. He's been a member of the Arizona House of Representatives since January of 2015, I believe. Mark was born in the Motor City, baby, in Detroit, but he grew up in Kalamazoo. After high school, Mark worked, get this, both as a police officer and a firefighter until 1999. I got to ask him how he did both jobs. After moving to Arizona to Tucson, which I absolutely love, I have friends in Tucson, he worked for Intuit, probably a very familiar name in business. It's a business that's in the software company, and before becoming a real estate broker. As you know, my co-host is a real estate broker. So I think we're probably not going to talk about politics. We're probably going to talk about houses.
We'll talk both.
In March of 2021, Mark announced he would run for Secretary of State for the great state of Arizona, of course, in 2020 and this year. And guess what? He won. Because the vote was yesterday, so we want to welcome our winner on right now and welcome Mark Finchem onto the show. First of all, Stephanie and I are going to raise our glasses. Congratulations, Mark, on a great victory, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Nice going, Mark. Thanks for coming on the show and taking the time. We know you don't have a whole lot of time, so we'll jump right in.
Yeah, Mark.
So I want to be clear. Yesterday's election was a primary. We still got 3 months until the general.
You got, like everybody here is working towards November, but I know that you're going to be beating the bushes pretty good. Mark, what's really your beef with the Bureau of Land Management as you are the Arizona coordinator for the Coalition of Western States? What really rubs you the wrong way about the BLM?
Well, first of all, they're an illegally constituted agency in the federal government. In fact, we just saw the EPA decision that came out from the Supreme Court, and there's a real question as to whether or not the federal government has the authority to possess property in the state boundaries other than forts, magazines, arsenals, and dockyards.
Interesting.
So there's no reason why we have to have national parks and national wildlife refuges. The states are perfectly capable of doing that. And quite frankly, we hear the left always talking about, the lands were overgrazed. Well, they were overgrazed under federal management. So the federal government, once again, creates a problem and then says, we're the solution for the problem.
Speaking of speaking of that and problems, talk about the border wall down there and just the complete invasion that's happening in your state.
Yeah, well, so Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas are both liars. We do not have operational control of our border. In fact, our border is wide open, and that's why you're seeing so many illegals showing up on your streets. So they have successfully made every state a border state. Congratulations, fellas.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah,
We gotta get
you
that.
are now causing the overrun of state governments in their ability to care for the people under the general welfare clause of the Constitution. We can no longer take care of the people we have that are legal citizens, let alone the influx of millions of illegal aliens that do not belong in this country and, quite frankly, should be ejected. Now, under Title 42 with President Trump, we at least slowed the onslaught down. But this is all rooted in Cloward and Piven, and that's a couple of commies back in the day who figured out the way to cause a state to collapse is you overrun its resources.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what they're doing.
Mark, why do you think that President Biden just doesn't seem to get it?
Well, because he's not really the president. I'm questioning whether or not the lights are even home, let alone on.
I think a lot of people are
I
questioning
mean,
that.
you've got a lot of people in Washington, D.C. right now that are talking about invoking the 25th Amendment. Well, if that's the case, get on with it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's probably appropriate.
If the guy is not mentally stable, if he can't, the guy can't even put three words together to make a sentence.
True.
Yeah, that's true.
So why is the nation being put through this? Well, because it's all about maintaining power. It's all about trying to maintain the status quo.
Yeah.
Elections have consequences, and stolen elections have really serious consequences.
True.
And speaking of that, of course, I want to talk to you about this past election, but also 2020. I hear so many people say to me, especially about Arizona, because you guys had the cyber ninjas in and did the whole forensic audit, and it was very detailed. And I watched the Senate hearings where they reported back what they found. And I still hear people say, well, if they found all of this evidence, how come the AG has not been prosecuting or bringing indictments forward for these people that they have discovered have committed fraud in that election?
Well, that'd be a really good question for the AG. In other words, we've delivered all kinds of evidence. I think, in summary, we have a two-tiered justice system. We have people who are privileged and won't be prosecuted, and we have people who, if they do the slightest thing, they will be. And I'm very disturbed with our Attorney General. I've given him a lot of air cover. I don't know if we are watching in slow motion a racketeering case that is being investigated or if we're watching a cover-up. I'm not sure which it is, but I know of the evidence that's been turned over. I know that there are some lawyers in the Attorney General's office here in Arizona that are diligent. They're good people working hard. So I really don't know what to make of the issue, of the situation, but we know that there's a ton of evidence there, and it's always up to the AG to make the determination whether or not they're going to issue indictments.
Yeah. Has the Arizona Senate been pushing them to get them moving on this? I mean, there's been a lot of time that has gone by and no one sees anything happening. So of course they equate that to that there's no evidence because nothing seems to be being done.
Yeah, it's not that there's no evidence. We have separation of powers. The Senate did its job. It collected evidence, collected testimony, and turned it over to the executive branch, which is the Attorney General's office. But once they did that, it's out of their hands. Now, keep in mind, I'm just coming out of the House of Representatives, so I'm not even closely related to what the Senate work was, other than the fact that I had a hand in trying to develop the theory of the case, the jurisprudence that was applicable, and try to package this thing into actionable items that the House and the Senate could actually move through the legislative process.
And then, I'm sorry. How about the 2000 Mules movie and all of that information that has come from True the Vote, right? Those folks, they did a presentation in front of the Arizona Senate as well. And, what's happening? Are they prosecuting any of those people? I heard that there was something happening in Yuma, right?
So,
in Yuma, Arizona?
Yeah. They issued indictments in Yuma, Arizona, and there were some pleas that were taken. Usually that's an indication that they are working upstream to the people who paid the people who paid the people. They've also identified a couple of NGOs that are involved, and from what I understand, they executed some search warrants, seized some equipment, seized some documentation. So that's all indicative of an ongoing investigation. So I'm loath to give the Attorney General a little bit of space, but come on now. I know what those investigations are like, and if you're trying to work it as a racketeering case, I'll be patient. But if I come to find out in later years. I mean, just think about it. Rudy Giuliani, I think, took down La Cosa Nostra in New York. It took him 5 years plus to do that.
Yeah.
Right now, the people feel as though justice has been denied because of the speed at which it's done has taken place, and I'm inclined to agree with them. And perhaps that's why we saw an absolute landslide victory yesterday in the Arizona primary election for Republicans.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. I know you've worked your butt off, Mark, getting where you are and winning this primary. But, bottom line, you did get a very, very coveted endorsement by former President Trump. How much did that help, in your opinion?
About 41 points worth. The president, so this is the fallacy of the left. They want everybody to think that Arizona's purple. Well, I'll eat my hat. We are not purple. Never been purple, and we're not moving purple. We are redder than red has ever been. And what we saw, interestingly enough, the early voting was counted first. And that gave us a modest, when I say us, I'm talking about Trump-endorsed candidates and, the Make America Great Again candidates. We saw a modest percentage ahead of the Doug Ducey, Mike Pence version,
right?
Which is the establishment swampy guys. Once those ballots were counted and they moved into real day voting ballots, meaning voting yesterday in person, we immediately saw a significant lift. And the reason is the majority of people who decided to go to the polls and either vote in person or drop off their ballot in person to protect chain of custody, they're MAGA voters.
Yeah.
Almost every one of them. I stood at the polls for 6 hours yesterday, welcoming people and asking if they had any last minute questions. Every single person that was walking in there voted for me. Not one did not. And I'm talking at least 150 people, 200 people that walked through that day. 100%. So that's indicative, I think, of what we will see in November. We've got a lot of people who have decided to get off of the mail-in ballot program. In fact, so much so that in Pinell County, which is directly to the south of Maricopa County, they ran out of ballots.
Yeah, I heard that. I read that.
They
Really?
ran out of ballots, and people were turned away. Now, they're trying to recover from that with an emergency court order to allow 3 days of extra voting. So now they have ballots that have been printed. People can go back. But we do not want to have a single voter disenfranchised, and that's what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
That is not good.
Did you
obviously.
have, knowing what you guys know now from 2020, do you guys have more teams and more people, observers around the state watching for some shenanigans to go on?
Yes, we do.
And did you
Yes,
see?
we do. Actually, it's more than that. We've got a program called Votify Now. It's an app for both iPhones and Androids. If you put this app on your phone, you become a witness who can memorialize what you've seen. It's VOTIFYNOW. You're able to take photographs, videos, tell your story about what you observed at the polls, or we've got one gentleman who had 3 ballots sent to his home, but he's only supposed to have 2.
Wow.
And he took a picture of the 3rd ballot and has memorialized that. It's now added to a national pool of incident reports for suspected irregularities or even fraud. So we've basically turned the entire polity, the entire citizen pool in Arizona into witnesses.
Oh, interesting.
And that's even more robust than having poll watchers. But we did have a lot of poll watchers, lots of activity on, the people are now fully engaged.
That's awesome. Mark, we know that voter integrity, election integrity is an issue all across the country. Once you get into office, what can the Secretary of State do in Arizona to try to assure that there's no voter fraud? What powers do you have to do that? Because you oversee the elections, man.
Yeah. So elections, we don't have a state election. We have 15 county elections in Arizona because we have 15 counties. Now, the Secretary of State is the not only the de facto lieutenant governor, but is the senior elections official supervising all 15 counties. That means that the Secretary of State is responsible for making sure that everyone lives by the rule of law. Now, the whole point of Title 16 in Arizona Revised Statutes is to regulate behaviors in elections, to see to it that we have a level playing field for everyone who wants to run for office and everyone who wants to vote for somebody who's running for office. Right now, we don't have that. And we have everything from participation in ERIC, which is the Electronic Registration Information Center, a George Soros plot to basically create a voter pool that can be moved around. We've got individuals who are on the voter rolls that should not be. They moved or deceased or are not eligible to vote anymore in the state of Arizona. It's just a mess. And the current Secretary of State has been more focused on serving party than people. So that's going to be, number one, is the culture change that we're going to have to engage in with the Secretary of State's office to move it back to a people-oriented service agency as opposed to a party-oriented service agency.
Yeah. Would you believe in a national election day that has been proposed by some politicians we've talked to? Okay, it's election day. You get the day off. You get paid or whatever. Take your ballot and go down. No mail-ins or whatever. Are you for that?
Well, in Arizona, we already give people, it's statute that individuals have 4 hours off the clock to go vote.
Oh.
Didn't know that.
Okay. So now, there are some people who are calling for voting day to be a national holiday.
Yeah, yeah.
How about we look at one of the holidays that we already have and move it to voting day? There's a solution for you without creating another holiday.
There you go. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, so who is one of the American icons that stood for suffrage? How about Martin Luther King?
Yeah.
Good idea.
So if we were to move Martin Luther King Day from the third Monday of January to Election Day,
yeah,
problem solved.
Not
only that, you've got an iconic name,
right,
who calls on everyone to judge people by the character of their heart, the content of their heart, not what they read in the media.
Yeah, that is a heck of a great idea. And to be honest with you, Mark, I was thinking of Mother's Day. Let's get rid of Mother's Day. No,
Stop.
Okay, so I'm not going to go near that one.
He can't answer that. So your first order of business, once you get elected in the general, would be to clean up the voter rolls, I assume. But also, would you implement some kind of live streaming at every single polling location to watch what happens?
Good question.
Well, at the tabulation stage, yes. Now, I'm a fan of paper ballots, hand counting. Once you start counting, you don't stop, and the doors are locked. You're not able to bring anything in or out. Now, of course, we've got people here in the U.S. that say, oh, you can't possibly do that. Funny, they do that in France, and they are actually able to count all of their ballots in one day. Huh.
We used to be able to do that, and then COVID happened, and all this other stuff happened.
Exactly. All the other stuff that came along with it. Are you going to ask?
Once again, they're from the government. They're here to help.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Famous last words, Mark.
Are you going to ask, or do you think that President Trump will come out and do an event for you?
I can neither confirm nor deny that we are going to have any future events in Arizona.
Okay.
It's a really good possibility, but because he loves Arizona.
Yes.
I know he loves Arizona. Yeah. No, that's great.
And he backed Carrie Lake, and I understand she won her primary too last night.
Yep.
So
yeah, that's awesome.
And how long does Arizona allow ballots to come in and be counted and all of that?
Well, if it wasn't received by yesterday at 7:00, it doesn't count.
Doesn't count.
Oh, okay.
Hard stop. Now,
okay.
You have a situation where the court has to basically cure a significant error on the part of Pinell County, mismanagement, in fact, even malmanagement of the elections officials, where they didn't have enough ballots for for everyone to cast a ballot. So now the court has stepped in, and I think this is probably a 14th Amendment case, where they are going to permit 3 additional days of voting. But that's only for people who have not cast their ballot. People don't get to do a do-over or any of that.
Right.
If you were denied at the polls, it's my understanding that they're setting up a situation where you'll be able to go in and vote either by the end of the day today, tomorrow, or the next day, and still have it count.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Mark, we know you're a little bit pressed for time because, like you said, you're getting hammered with calls and emails and congratulatory calls. And when you get into office, what do you feel would be your main accomplishment or the first thing you would try to change for the betterment of the government of the state of Arizona?
Well, I think setting the tone is probably going to be the single most important accomplishment, and that tone is the job of the Secretary of State, summed up very simply, is to hold elections officials accountable for following existing law. Hard stop. Now, some of the things that go along with that, we need to have a revision of our elections procedure manual, which basically is the cookbook for holding an election. We need to have a thorough review of existing law to find out if there is something in law, and we've been studying this for over 8 years, since I've been there. Is there something in law that facilitates criminal behavior? One of those examples, we attempted to put regulations on drop boxes, essentially making them as secure as ATMs. Because after all, your ballot is worth as much, if not more, than your money.
Yeah.
That's right.
And we had members, basically Democrats registered as Republicans, who killed those bills. So the legislature is going to have their hands full in this next session. Much of the stuff that was either vetoed by the governor, the president governor, or killed by members because they had an egotistical temper tantrum, those things are going to be reintroduced.
Yeah, good.
Well, yeah, that's good. Before we let you go, I want you to talk about your Take Action tour that you're working on.
Yeah, so it's basically a speaker's tour that deals with domestic security, and there are many aspects of domestic security, from border security and shutting down human slavery, especially child sex trafficking, to infiltration of our institutions at every level, local, state, and federal, of individuals who want to essentially subvert the proper order of government. And we see that with the Democrat Party now. I mean, cheating in an election isn't winning an election, it's just cheating.
Right.
And it's important that we have trustworthy individuals in those institutions. So the speaker's tour basically is going to highlight in each and every state over the next 24 months what people know something's wrong, but they don't know what it is. They can't put their finger on it. So we'll be able to highlight that. We'll be able to give them some tools on how to take action and try to mitigate that and prepare people to run for office to replace the individuals that should probably be thrown out of office.
Right. Right. That's an awesome task.
It is. Well, when you make it to Vegas, let us know.
Definitely. Yeah.
We'll come
We'd
down.
love-
I'll be happy to let you know.
Yeah.
We'd love to get together with you. Anyway, Mark, I know that you've got a lot of commitments. Thanks for coming on the show, spending some time with us. Great work. We wish you all the best. Anything we could do to help you, please reach out.
Well, you can have people go to votefinchem.com. That's VOTEFINCHEM.com. They can click on the news tab and watch whatever they want to watch as far as the interviews that I've done. And they can click on the donate tab and help support my campaign.
There you go. And remember that. Anyway, Mark, thanks again, and we hope to speak to you soon.
Thanks,
Thank you
Mark.
very much.
All right.
Mark Finchem, everybody, from Arizona. Interesting.
Yeah. A lot going on in Arizona.
Yeah.
They have a lot of issues just like we have here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but it sounds like he's going to do a lot to clean up and
Absolutely.
fix the voter rolls and
I don't know if people watching know this, but, he survived 2 recalls.
oh wow.
He survived 2 recalls, and it shows you how tough he is. And there was enough
Right.
people that said, "Oh no, we're not going to throw him out of office." They didn't get the required amount of signatures and all that stuff because he's his own guy, obviously, and like you said, he's a far right politician, so he is what it is. But anyway, all right, that's going to wrap it up for another edition of Pick Your Politics. For Stephanie, I'm Dennis, and this is Mulligan. By the way, he
Yeah,
wants
that's
to.
right.
He wants to say goodbye. And we're going to see you next time, same place, same time, with another great show. And get out and vote, everybody. So long.
See you later.